real numbers?
Yeah. All the numbers are real numbers. Rational and irrational are the two categories which take down from real numbers.
Okay. Okay, fine. So you are saying the numbers that we are dealing with nowadays are all real numbers, है ना?
Real
So
numbers. Yes.
there is one more number that you will deal with in class 11th, and that is known as imaginary numbers. As the name suggests, real means which is being existing in the real world, and there is one more which
Yes.
is known as imaginary numbers. Let me tell you the bifurcation.
Yes.
Let me tell you the bifurcations. For your knowledge only, I'm telling you. So numbers are of two types. First of all, real and yes. Beta, you are on mute. Dev, you are on mute, beta. Unmute yourself. Okay?
Imaginary. Yes.
Imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers, I told you will be studying a topic known as complex numbers. Topic will be there, complex numbers, in class 11, chapter 5, which will be dealing with these kind of numbers. Okay. In some calculations in physics, we actually got numbers like these: under root -3. Okay. Have you seen any such number in which you had a minus sign inside the under root?
No.
You have never seen such kind of number. If you try to understand, there is no number whose square can be -3. That is the reason this number is a imaginary number. Okay, because we know if we have under root 4, we know 2 square is 4. Yes.
Yes.
We know if we have 9, we know 3 square is 9. Yes.
Yes.
But can we have any number A whose square is negative number? Can we have?
No.
Is
No,
there
but it
any
is
number
possible for cube.
for cube it is possible, but for under roots it is not possible. Or you can say whenever the power is even, then it is not possible. Are you sure about that?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we can say such number cannot exist in the real world. That's why we call them
Real number, imaginary numbers.
Imaginary numbers. So right now you won't have to be dealing with these numbers. You will be dealing with them in class 11th. Okay. Now our main concern is real numbers. Let's see. Under real numbers, we have two more bifurcations, and they are, as you said earlier,
Rational and irrational.
rational and irrational. Okay. Rational numbers and irrational numbers. The rational numbers, what is the symbol for rational numbers? Okay, first of all, the symbol for real number
R.
is capital R. What is the symbol for rational numbers?
I don't know that.
Okay, the symbol is capital Q.
Okay.
Although it is starting from R only, but we have already used the symbol for real numbers, so we cannot use it over here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dev, one more thing. After completing, suppose one page is complete, I will tell you to take a screenshot of this, because if you keep on writing along with me, it will take a lot of time, and we have 3 classes in a week, so that won't be too much fruitful. So better you take the screenshot, and whatever you find important after the class, you can note it down in your notebook that you have made for maths. Okay. So let's see, rational numbers and irrational number. It's fine. Now tell me, how will you define a rational number?
Okay. So all the numbers which come under the category of fractions, integers, and are all the numbers which come under fraction and integers are rational numbers.
Okay, you are saying all the number coming in the fraction and integer are rational numbers. Okay. Okay, then fraction and integer, if I take root 3, that is a part of irrational number, fine.
Yes.
But have you studied any particular definition also of this rational number? Any particular definition? You are trying to give the examples. Any definition you remember? The numbers which can be written in the form, anything like that.
The numbers which can be written in the form of P upon Q, and Q is not equal to 0.
And what about P and Q? Is there any condition on P and Q also?
Yeah, Q is not equal to 0.
And P?
P can be P can be any whole number.
Any whole number.
No,
So that means it can
any
be.
Any integer.
So the condition is P and Q must be integers.
P and Q must be integer, and Q must not be 0.
Q cannot be. Yes. So we have the definition very simple. A number which can be written in the form P upon Q, comma, where P comma Q are integers and Q is not equal to
Q is not equal to 0.
0. Okay. Now, what about irrational numbers? As you have done.
The numbers which cannot be numbers which cannot be written in the form of P upon Q
are known as irrational numbers. If you remember your class 9th chapter 1, I think there was some more expansions out of thing, decimal expansion definition of these.
Yes.
Do you remember those definitions?
Yeah, the rational number in the rational numbers, in the rational numbers the decimals were recurring, and in the irrational non-recurring, and in the irrational numbers the decimals were recurring.
In the irrational they were recurring. Okay. So actually that was like this. In rational number there were two types: terminating
and non-terminating.
And non-terminating.
Terminating. Yes.
But repeating or recurring.
Yes.
These were the two definitions of rational numbers. You can define these in these for this way also, that you can say rational numbers decimal expansion is either terminating or non-terminating, recurring or repeating. Is that fine?
Yes.
And in the similar way, for irrational number, we used to say the decimal expansion of an irrational number is, yes?
It is non-terminating, and it can be recurring or non-recurring.
How it can be recurring, beta? If it is a recurring case, then it is coming in the rational only.
Okay, so it should be non-recurring.
So yes, it is always non-terminating, non-recurring. Okay, so you can see the examples like these: 0.01, 001, 0001, 00001, and so on. So you can see it is non-terminating and there is no pattern at all. You cannot find a similar thing repeating itself. Can you find?
No.
No. That means irrational number decimal expansion is non-terminating, non-repeating. Fine?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now we will discuss the remaining numbers that we have done earlier. Under rational numbers, we have all those numbers that we have learned from our childhood. Okay?
Yes.
Before that, tell me some examples of irrational numbers.
Pi, which is 22/7.
22/7 is not the exact value of it. It is an approximate value.
Okay.
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 Then.
Yes. And √3.
√3, very good.
And √7.
√7, fine.
And √11.
√11. What about √16? Is it an irrational number?
No, it comes under rational because it comes down to 4.
Because you can solve it to make a rational number. Fine.
Yes.
So now let's proceed further. Under rational number, what do we have here is, first we have all the integers coming under rational numbers only.
Yes.
Okay, can you define integers?
Yeah. All the whole numbers and the negative side of the natural numbers.
Okay, that is fine. But if I want to explain this integers in terms of rational numbers, because we know that it is coming under rational numbers, can we define it in the term of p by q?
Yes. The integers are the numbers. The integers are the numbers in which q is always equal to 1, in which the q is always equal to 1, and p can be any number.
Very good. So we can say integers are rational numbers where p
Q
can be
is
any
equal to
integer.
1.
P
Yes.
can be any integer, and q is always
1.
1. Very good. Nice answer from your side. So let's see. We can say, suppose we have 5, 3, 6. We all have 1 in their denominator. Okay. So integer is fine with you. Now tell me, apart from integers, which other numbers you have learned till now?
Fractions.
Fractions are, I think, coming in rational number only, na? Because they are fraction only. That's fine. Apart from that,
and decimals.
Decimals. Okay. Decimals, if you simplify a fraction, you will get a decimal only. That is okay. Apart from that, under integer, you must have studied about whole numbers.
Whole number are natural numbers.
Natural number, good. You can say the integers starting from 0 are whole numbers. The integers starting from 1 are
natural
numbers. Okay. Apart from this, you must have studied about prime numbers
and composite
What are prime numbers? What are prime numbers?
The prime number are numbers which have only two factors, 1 and the number itself.
Okay. The first prime number is
2.
Okay, very good. So the first is 2, then we have 3, then we have 5, and so on. Okay. Now, what about composite numbers?
The composite numbers are the numbers which have more than 2 factors. For example, 4, 6.
Okay, good. And what about 1? It will come in prime or composite?
It neither comes in prime and nor in composite.
So what do we call it? We call it a unique number because it is having only one factor. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. What about co-prime numbers?
I haven't heard of them.
You haven't heard of them? Okay. Co-prime, twin prime, you haven't heard of them, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Co-prime, the word co means some sort of grouping, hai na? More than one number.
Yes.
So it may be it is some sort of property which will be existing between more than two numbers. Is it fine?
Yes.
Now I'm telling you what are they. It is set of number having only factor equal to 1.
Okay.
So if you have two numbers A and B, suppose they are said to be co-prime if there is only one factor which can divide both of them, or you can say the highest common factor of any two number is yes,
co-prime.
If HCF is one of two numbers, they are
co-prime.
Yes. So if HCF of two numbers is 1, they are co-prime. Simple?
Yes.
Now, can you tell me some examples for this?
HCF is 1. It can be 1 itself.
One itself. But I told you it is a set of numbers. Minimum two numbers you have to tell me. Okay, 1 and 2. Fine. 1, 2. Apart from that?
2 and 5.
2 and 5. Okay. Then?
7 and 11.
7 and 11. Okay. What about 4 and 5?
Yeah, that is also possible.
That is also possible. And have you observed one thing? This 4 is not a prime number.
Yes.
That means it is not a compulsion to be a co-prime. Both should be prime. It is not a compulsion. Is it fine?
Yes.
It is fine. Nah? Now I will tell you the next definition based on prime numbers, and that is twin prime. Okay. Have you heard of that?
Okay. No.
Have you heard? Okay, you have not heard of twin prime also. So no problem. Let's see. Twin prime. Under twin prime, here we have a compulsion that both the numbers should be prime numbers. So we can say two prime numbers having difference equal to 2. Difference equal to 2 is known as twin prime. Now you can tell
Twin
me the
prime.
examples.
7 and 5.
7 and 5. Okay, 5 comma 7 you can take. Good. Apart from that,
13 comma 11.
13 comma 11. Okay, 11 comma 13. Fine. 17 comma 19.
Yeah, 17
Yes.
comma 19. Yes.
So one thing is, as we go further in the numbers, there are very less number of prime numbers, and so is the case with co-prime and twin prime. Okay. Co-prime, so we can get
Yes.
many, but twin prime are rare. You will get rare numbers by proceeding further. Now,
Yes.
if you can take a screenshot of all this, huh? Yes, from here, take a screenshot of the first part.
Okay.
You're using a laptop or a mobile phone?
Mobile.
Okay, it would be better if you use a laptop, because the screen will be larger in that. Okay, is it done?
Okay. I've taken the screenshot.
Okay, now take the screenshot of this part. Is it done?
Yes.
Okay, take this also, twin prime part. So for your knowledge, you must be knowing co-prime because we will be using co-prime numbers in this chapter also. So you must know about them. Okay. So now the next topic in this chapter that we have to start is about integers. We will study two main things on them. I think it is mentioned over here also. If you have studied, we begin with two important properties of positive integers in section 1.2 and 1.3. So these two exercises are all about two important properties of integers, and they are Euclid's division algorithm and fundamental theorem of
Lemma.
arithmetic. That lemma is a formula, and this algorithm is a step of procedures that we will be following to solve the question. Okay, so let's see. In this chapter, we are all going to go for integers and their two important properties. The first one is Euclid's
Euclid
division
division algorithm.
And the second one is
Fundamental principle.
fundamental theorem of
Arithmetic.
Fine. Okay. Now, what have you studied about Euclid's division algorithm? Please tell.
Okay. So Euclid's division algorithm, it is a kind of algorithm which is used to check the divisibility of integers. And for example, if you are dividing a by b, then if you are dividing a divided by b, then we will get a formula in which a equals to b into quotient plus remainder.
Okay, so we have been using this formula from our, I think, class 6. We have been using because we are doing division. So we all know in a division, this main thing which is being divided is known as, yes,
dividend.
And the one which is dividing is known as
divisor.
and the one answer is your quotient, and in the remainder you are getting over here. Okay, so this
Yes.
we were using before also, but now we got the name of the person who actually found this formula for us. And now he was the one who formulated this thing, and we are using it before even knowing who did this. Now, Euclid said for any two integers a comma b, although the definition says for any two positive integers, but it is applicable for negative also. The only condition is there should be no zero. Okay, the only condition is there should be no zero in this. So what Euclid said is for any two integers a comma b, we have a relation a is equal to bq plus r. Okay, so he said for any two positive integers, you have a relation a is equal to bq plus r. Dev, your video is off.
Yes.
Okay, so he said this thing, and in this q is the quotient and r is the remainder. What about
Remainder.
r? Is there any condition on r?
Yeah, there should be no zero.
There should be
No zero.
no zero. Why? R cannot
Because
be zero.
yeah, R can be zero.
Okay, so what is the limitation on r? It should be less than or greater than anything that you have studied while reading the book.
It should be less than divisor.
It should be less than divisor. Very good. So the divisor is
B.
b. Very good. And it should be greater than equal to.
It should be greater than or equal to remainder.
No, it should be greater than equal to 0. It is remainder itself, na? In some
Okay.
cases, we have a perfect divisor. Suppose you have the case of, suppose you have 6 here and 2 over here. Suppose you have taken 2 ones are 2. What will you get?
4.
You will get the remainder as 4. But is this a correct division?
No, we will take 3.
Why? Because this 4, which is a remainder, is coming more than the divisor.
2.
And we are losing one more number that we could have used. That's why it is wrong. And we went for 2 3s are 6 and the remainder is 0. So if the remainder is 0, we say it is a factor. If you remember, we can say 2 is a factor of 6.
6. Yes.
And if it is not a 0, we can say it is not a factor of 6. Simple?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now let's see. So as I told you, r, which is your remainder, can be more than equal to 0 and less than the divisor. Fine?
Yes.
Clear? And now tell me, what have you studied about fundamental theorem of arithmetic?
The fundamentals, it says that any natural number can be written as product of its prime factors.
Its prime factors. Okay, good. So it says any composite number, actually. Any composite number can be written as product of prime numbers. So is it clear to you?
Yes.
Okay. For example, suppose you have 30. You can write this as 2 multiplied with, yes?
2 multiplied by 2.
Okay.
No, sorry, 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 5.
Okay, so we have written this composite number as product of 3 what? 3 prime numbers. Yes?
3 prime numbers, 2, 3 and 5.
this also we have been using for a long time. This prime factorization is being used for a long time for finding the HCF, for finding the LCM. If you remember, in the previous classes, you have done this. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we will see what is the application. What is the application of this Euclid's division algorithm? In which thing it is helping us in this chapter?
It is used to find HCF in this
To
chapter.
find the HCF. And one more thing is there.
Yes.
If you have studied the theory, you must have studied that also. One more thing is there, which in which it is helping us.
It is also used to show that every positive. It is used to prove many things. For example, it is used to prove that every positive integer is in the form of 2.
Yes. So you can say in short that Euclid's division algorithm is helping us in first finding the HCF, and second in proving the properties of numbers. Suppose you want to prove that a number is even. The number is even, you can use this property. If you want to show the number is odd, you can use this property. So by that way, you can utilize this property to find all those things. And what about fundamental theorem of arithmetic? What is the use of this property?
I haven't gone till that part of the chapter yet.
Okay, so I'm telling you, in the last class, we discussed about irrational numbers like root 2, root 3, root 5. Do you remember that thing?
Yeah.
So there it was, I think, in our mind that it is a irrational number. But in this class, we cannot assume that. We have to prove that. So we will be proving root 2 is irrational by some steps. And in that, we will be taking help of fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So we will be using this to find or to prove a given number irrational.
Yeah.
Yes. And we will be using this algorithm to find HCF and to prove properties of numbers. Fine?
Yes.
You can take a screenshot of this now.
Yeah. Okay, taken.
Okay. Dave, I think in 10 minutes the class will get over because of this trial pack I am having of Zoom. So we will join again, okay? The same ID.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's see what is HCF. And before that, what is factor? Before understanding the highest common factor, let us understand what is a factor. Please tell.
Factors are two number which multiply to get us a product. For example, the factors of 8 are 2 and 4 and 1.
Okay, so you can
4,
say
1 and 8.
So we can say in a short, we can say factors are those numbers which can divide a given number. Can I say that?
Yes. Yes.
Factor is a number that can divide the given number. Whatever number is given to you, if you can find such numbers which can divide them completely, you can say they are factor of that number. Fine?
Yes.
Now the question comes, what is highest common factor? Now again the term C is there, which is common. So if you are seeing something common, you need to have at least how many terms? If you are seeing something common, you would need to have at least 2 numbers to find the HCF. You can have more than that also, but to find something common, you need at least 2 numbers. Now tell me, what do you mean by highest common factor?
A number which is common factor of both and the highest of all.
Yes, and it is the largest also. Now tell me why we are not discussing LCF. You must have not heard this thing.
Because
LCF.
The lowest common factor of every number is 1.
Is always 1, and that is understood. So there is no need of going through this thing. Yes? Fine.
Yes.
Participants can now see your screen. Okay. Now the next thing is, what are we having? Of finding HCF, which methods you know till now? Suppose I give you to find HCF of, suppose 14 and 35. How will you find the HCF of 14 and 35 using your previous knowledge? If you don't know,
Prime factorization.
okay, you will go for prime factorization. You will write 14 as,
Answer will be 7.
okay, you will first write 14 as 2 into 7. You will write 35 as 5 into 7. And then you will see what is common in these two. And the only thing common is 7. So the HCF becomes 7. The best part of doing prime factorization is you can find HCF and LCM easily in the same question.
Yes.
Can you tell me what is the LCM of these two?
What is LCM? LCM. Uh, 70.
So we can just see in LCM, we have to write all the factors first. Suppose 2 is coming, 5 is coming, and 7 is coming. And then we will see what is their maximum power, which is coming. So if you see 2 is coming only once, so the maximum power is 1 only. 5 is coming once, so 5 power maximum power is 1 only. 7 is also coming with maximum power 1 only. So that's the answer, which is 70. So this was the way of finding HCF by prime factorization. What about the new method that we have to learn? You have done any question on that? Have you done any question on that? Euclid's division? But you are on mute right now.
Oh, sorry. I've done the first part of first question.
Okay. So let me tell you one thing. Now you might be reading that term lemma again and again. This statement is Euclid's division lemma. Your video is off, beta. Dev, your video is off.
Okay.
So this statement alone is known as Euclid's division lemma or the Euclid's formula. But the step-by-step approach to find the HCF is known as
Prime factorization.
Again, try to understand. There are two terms, Euclid's division algorithm and Euclid's division lemma. I am telling you that lemma is only a statement, that is A equal to BQ plus R, where R is less than B and more than equal to 0. The second thing is, I am saying, what is
so
algorithm?
The step-by-step explanation is algorithm.
Yeah, the step-by-step procedure to find the highest common factor is known as Euclid's division algorithm. Fine, it is clear to you now?
Yes.
Many times people use the terms interchangeably, but the main meaning is this only. Okay. Now, now let's come to the same question and try to find this HCF using Euclid's division algorithm. Okay. So what we do in this algorithm is, first step, we try to see which number is larger amongst the two. Which one is larger?
225.
No. Amongst these two, 14 and 35.
Okay. 35.
35 is larger. So step one is, as 35 is more than 14, so applying Euclid's division lemma on 35, 14. Now you are treating them as A and B. Are you getting this?
Yes. Yes.
We have seen that definition, na? That for any two positive integers, we have the form A equal to BQ plus R. Yeah. So now my job is to find that Q and R, and that's it. Let's see. If I have A equal to 35 and I have B equal to 14, tell me what will be the value of Q and what will be the value of R?
Q would be 1 and R would be 21.
Okay. Are you sure for that? Let's check. If you see 14 ones are 14, but the remainder you are saying is 21, we have studied that B cannot be more than divisor. We have studied that
but
thing, beta.
I have done that, but earlier I was studying through an online app, and in that it was showing that we always give the quotient as 1 when we are doing through this method.
But you have to find the complete quotient for this. You have to find a complete quotient for this. Now, you have to find the maximum that you can do. 14 to the 28 is the maximum that you can do. Just below that, है ना? So I think
yes,
it should be 2. And what is the remainder?
Yes. 7.
7. Actually, what you were saying, na, that was not the complete division. That was this only. Let me show you what you did. No, you were going wrong only, because if you have the first number is 3, okay, first we start with the first number and we see whether we can divide it or not. Obviously 3 is smaller than 14, we cannot divide, so we have to go to the next number also. Yes. And now we will choose that number which is closest to this. So if you go for 14 ones are, that is absolutely wrong. You cannot go for that. Okay. Fine. So 14 twos are 28 plus 7 is 35. So this is the first step that we have done. Can you see R is not 0?
Yeah.
So R is not a 0. That means 14 is not a factor.
Yes.
Yes. As R is not equal to 0, we can say this 14 is not the highest common factor. So we will write in step 2, as R is not equal to 0, therefore again applying Euclid's division lemma on. Now we have to change the A and B. Try to understand. Now we will change the A and B. My new A will be 14 and new B will be 7. Are you getting this?
Yes.
My old divisor become my A now, and my remainder became my B now. Is it clear?
B. Yes.
Now again applying, what will I get? 14 is equal to
7 into 2.
7 into 2
plus 0.
Plus 0, and we have got the remainder equal to 0. So now I can say that this factor or this divisor is the highest common